well, it's like in the early days of digital cinema. Let's be clear. At the beginning of DCI, all they only talked about was 2K, which, let's be clear, 2K is HD TV. It's effectively HD TV, especially when most of these films showing on these 2K projectors, the masters have been delivered on D5, videotapes. So that's 1920 by 1080. Call me crazy. That's HD TV. I was always pushing for 4K because it was my heart of hearts. My belief was that 4K you're kissing, if not exceeding, the resolution of a 35 millimeter anamorphic frame. CinemaScope anamorphic, you're using almost the entire negative area available in a 35 millimeter frame. And my thing too was, because when I worked at DreamWorks, I remember having a conversation with Steven Spielberg and Marty Cohen once, and Steven saying that someday he was going to make his Lawrence of Arabia, where he's going to shoot a film in 65 at some point. I know he tested it once on oh great, Alan Davey was cinematographer, the film in China about the young boy during World War II. Empire of the Sun, thank you. They did tests on 65 at that time. But anyway, my thought was, if Steven Spielberg or name your director decides they wanted to make a film on 65 millimeter, I didn't want to turn to him going, oh, I'm sorry, we settled on HD TV for digital cinema. You'll never see it look like. So for people to say that 2K is good enough, then it's, yes, it's adequate because, as I said earlier tonight, we're not in the medical imaging business. I acknowledge that. We're in the entertainment business, so resolution isn't everything. But I think it's important that we don't set the bar so low that if you do want to create Orion's Daughter or an IMAX type of hyper clarity or show scanish type of hyper clarity experience, we don't want to say, oh, I'm sorry, it's only 2K, you'll never see that. No, 4K, you start to achieve it. And I know what I'm talking about. When I worked at Technicolor, my last 4 years, when I was the principal guy handling all dailies, I used to screen between 15 and 18 million feet of film a year. That's more film in 1 year than most cinematographers see in their lifetime. So I used to look at, and God knows resolution is my life. I love high resolution. So suddenly here, you just realize, normally anamorphic, you start with your original negative up here. Am I out of frame? Anyway, and then you make a contact IP, and you lose some resolution. Make a contact internegative, you lose some resolution. Make a contact release print, and God knows you lose some resolution because they're printing at 2,000, 3,000 feet a minute. The slip sliding away that goes on between the internegative and the print stock. And then you go in the projector, and here's another loss of resolution because not only is it jumping and weaving at the gate, but a lot of people don't realize when the shutter opens in a film projector, if we're looking at a film on edge, I saw some high-speed films, I believe Kodak did them once. The shutter opens and the lamp house and the film goes like this. It just totally blisters out. The shutter closes and the film blisters back. It's amazing the elasticity of the film. It's amazing it looks as in focus as it does because it's moving on the film lane there. Okay, so now you get down here that no wonder people say that, well, 2K is good enough because even the early TI projectors looked pretty, gave release prints a run for their money. But it's like, why should we accept what was adequate when you actually were photographing on 35 millimeter scope negatives, capturing all this information, and if you scan it at 4K now, and with a 4K projector, you paint it onto the screen. And so now suddenly you have this ability, and yes, if you don't want it to look like IMAX, I promise you we can make it look softer. There was a test done on a major motion picture at Warner Brothers where they shot with one of the HD digital cameras, and they viewed it in one of the older theaters in Warner Brothers. They shot digitally, they recorded out the film, and they projected it in a theater, and they were 8 screen heights from the screen. 8. Not 7, not 6, they were 8. Why? Because the console to talk to the projection booth is in the next to the last row of the theater. So when everybody came in, let's look at the test. They all sit by the console. And here's the screen, the thing is, maybe people don't understand. Standard definition television, if you're 7 screen heights away, your eye can't resolve anything sharper than that. If you're 7 screen heights away from IMAX and 7 screen heights away from standard definition TV, they look the same. The problem was I came back from a vacation when they'd done this test, and we ran the same test for the execs. I made them sit 1.5 screen heights away because most stadium seat theaters are 3 screen heights deep. If you're 7 screen heights away, you're parking your car. You're not even in the theater. So I sat them 1.5 screen heights away, we ran the same footage, and the reaction I got from the executives was, what'd you do to this test? It looks much uglier now. What'd you do to it? And I'd say, it's the same stuff you looked at 3 weeks ago.